Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me in the back? All good? We've got everything up? All right, good to go. So my name is Max Sklar. I'm an engineer and data scientist at Foursquare. And I've been there, 5.5 years. And today I'm going to talk about our bot. It's called Marsbot, and we launched it back in May. And Foursquare is hold it a little closer to my mouth. Okay. Foursquare, as many of you know, is a local recommendation engine. Find the best places around you, find your friends on our Swarm app. It launched right here in Austin at South by Southwest back in 2009. So now we're getting into bots. So the question is, why are we building bots? Why should we build bots? And, well, we have some stats that these are not, I wouldn't say 100% accurate, but they make the point really well, that people only use about 12 apps daily, and the one that's really concerning is about 80% of people's usage is stuck in 3 apps, and it's 3 different ones for each person. People tend to cluster a lot of their time into certain apps, and those tend to be messaging apps, so that's why a bot is the way to go. And of course, bots are a huge growth opportunity. I don't need to convince this group of that. Bots can offer a seamless user experience. I don't know if you guys, the picture of Kramer there, our product manager, Marissa Chaco, used that in another presentation, and I had never seen that scene before. Anyone who is building bots needs to go on YouTube and search Kramer. Why don't you just tell me the name of the movie you selected? It's really great, but it's basically he's trying to be a chatbot over the phone. And okay, bots can form emotional connections with users. That's really important, as a lot of you know. So, what are some questions that keep bot makers up at night? Or more specifically, these are questions that keep us up at night, but they probably keep a lot of you up at night as well. What are people going to get out of my chatbot? Will they actually want to use it? Well, yeah, of course they'll want to use it. This is the greatest thing ever. Okay, answer that question. But will they remember to use it when they need it? I don't know. People have a lot of things going on. Will they get annoyed if we remind them to use it when they need it? And this is when these thoughts start going to a dark place, because do we want to live in a world where hundreds of needy bots are constantly vying for our attention? Talk to me, type back, press an option. Don't talk to your friends, don't talk to your family. You're trying to get work done? No, don't get work done. I'm gonna message you. Click this link. Click this link. Come on, you won't believe what happens next. And it's kind of a dystopian future. When you think about it, we kind of did that to the internet just a little bit. So, okay, let's think about what we really want to build. We want to build a bot that knows you and looks out for your interests. We all could use that. We want bots that wake up at just the right time and can help you in some way. And it works in a very specific domain, and it knows that domain very well. So we applied that to what we do at Foursquare, and Foursquare's job is to help you find the best places wherever you are in the world, the best restaurants, the best coffee shops, the best outdoors spot, and we came up with Marsbot. So now this is more specific. This is a quote from our founder, Dennis Crowley, on what we're building. We didn't want to create a chat bot to endlessly answer your questions. We wanted to create a context bot, one that can understand where you're standing, learn from the places you've been, and predict what you may do next. And so that brings us to Marsbot. So here's how I've been describing Marsbot. It's SMS-based. It uses text messaging, although that doesn't have to be true forever in the future. Marsbot is a character that lives in your pocket. It learns about your daily habits and routines. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to constantly train it. It does ask you some questions, but you don't have to answer them. It still works well if you don't answer them. And it just learns about you because it knows the places that you go every day. And then it uses that information to build a profile of you, and then it uses that profile to text you personalized local recommendations. So we leveraged many years of existing technology in Foursquare. We were sitting on 6 years of product building, machine learning, that makes it all possible. So I don't know, that's something that we had that we're very fortunate of. But a lot of you bot makers, there are tons of APIs and existing data sources out there that are waiting to be mined by the coming of the bots. So let's take a look at what we had. These are the ingredients that we had to work with. We had personalized search. Okay, that's really good. People love that. We have venue shapes and stop detection. So this is, we know when you're stopped at a place and we know what that place is. So, most chat applications will give you the latitude and the longitude, but we have actually, the data structured in a way, well, this person went to a coffee shop, then they, walked over to the park and went to a walk in the park, then they, went to the corner of the park, and they did, then they went to work, things like that. So that's very useful. We have sentiment analysis, so, we know what's good, basically. This is just one of our dashboards, but we have a lot of people talking about food items, lots of different things at places, and they tell us what's good and what's not good, and we've done a lot of work to make sure that's all accurate. We have ratings. We've been building ratings for a long time. I actually pushed out the first version of that back in 2012, and they work pretty well. If something's over a 9, it's pretty good. If something's over a 7, you're probably going to have a good time, unless you're very picky, then you might be like 8, 8.5. Not picky. We have timeliness and seasonality of items. This is actually really, really useful. This is something that we presented with our recommendation system stuff. This is, I love this graph. I love showing this graph because this is just milkshakes, burgers, and pancakes, their relative mentions on Swarm, basically, throughout any given week. So you can kind of tell, okay, what is a good time to ping someone about pancakes? What's a good time to ping someone about burgers and milkshakes? So we have that data. And not only do we have that data, this is for the US. We actually have it for every country. We can go down to the city level and see, sometimes different cities and different countries have dinner at different times. It's actually very fascinating. Okay, so those were our ingredients. Let's get back to the bot we build. I'm just going to finish off by showing you guys how much time do we have left. Okay, we got plenty of time. I'm just going to finish off by showing you guys a little bit about what the bot does and how we took all these ideas and put it together. And then, I'd like you guys to try it out and see if you have any questions or suggestions. I hope suggestions. So, first of all, we've gotten some very good engagement numbers initially, particularly because this is SMS. I think everybody opens text messages when they have it. Very few people have, don't open text messages. Of course, it's kind of a small sample right now. It's all early adopters. So this is an example of a push recommendation you might get from Marsbot. This is actually one that I got back in June. After a meal at La Bagel Delight, I go to this bagel place and on the weekend it's pretty good. Some people like to grab a cup of coffee at Hungry Ghost nearby. So it knows that I'm having lunch, and if I want coffee after, it'll give me a suggestion. And when it trains passively, it'll tell you that it's being trained. So it learns stuff about you, it'll use that, but then it will also tell you, hey, I just learned something about you. Do you want me to save that? And if you type yes, it saves it. If you type no, it removes it. If you don't say anything, it still kind of saves it tentatively, and it'll use that. So basically, in this one, it noticed that I just went to a bunch of Thai places, so it said, would you like me to keep looking out for great Thai restaurants? And you can reply yes, you can reply no, and then it puts it in my notebook. So Marsbot does have an app that you have to download, and a lot of people are, wondering why we need an app if we're doing this all over SMS. And it's, we do need it because we need all that technology from stop detection, which is kind of what Foursquare does best. But the good thing about having an app is that we can have kind of a secret page that shows the notebook that Marsbot keeps on you, all the stuff that Marsbot is writing down that it's learned about you over the past few weeks or the past few months. So it knows the types of places that I go. People have commented on it on Twitter. It knows the neighborhoods that you tend to hang out in. It knows what types of things you like when you go to places. And it knows the category of things that you go to. Okay. We also injected it with a lot of big personality. And this is really important. This is really what makes people kind of really like and get an emotional attachment to the app, so they keep coming back. And this is what gets you kind of mentions on Twitter and people talking to it with their friends. I liked this person on Twitter who posted one of our messages and said, "I think Marsbot just asked me out on a date," because the way we structured the text. And actually, if you do take Marsbot to a place that Marsbot recommended, then it will see that and it will get excited and it will say, "Thank you so much. I'm honored that you took my recommendation," and then it might tell you something useful there. And then, of course, on the right here, you can see that's kind of our onboarding. We spent lots and lots of time doing onboarding. We kind of gave it a little, an icon, and played with the text a little bit so people feel like, oh, I'm really talking to a service here that's going to understand me. I really understand what it is, and it's greeting me. That actually made a big difference. If we just kind of jumped into the recommendations right away, it feels much more impersonal. So, okay, we built this context bot. We have a bunch of push recommendations. That's great. But, it's SMS. Of course, it's going to go two ways. People are going to want to talk to it as well. So why can't you search for things directly on Marsbot? Why not? So we added that in. I could type in something like find Mexican food. It'll bring me the top result back. If it has something in those places that it knows you like, it'll tell you about that. Like if I like milkshakes, it'll say, hey, this place also has great milkshakes. I know you like that. So that's pretty cool. You can do search by emoji. That's on the lower left here. I was showing someone yesterday at the conference that I could type find hamburger, and then it got the Casino El Camino here in downtown Austin. So we first implemented this, and we thought it wasn't going to be very interesting. And the reason is, why don't I just pull up my Foursquare app? We've been doing recommendations for a long time. I can just pull up my Foursquare app, type in hamburgers, and it'll give me all the results. It'll give me the ratings. It'll give me, a map of where they all are. So why am I messing around with this text-based interface, when I can get so much more from the app? And, that's still largely true, but there's something very interesting happening with these conversations that I want to keep a close eye on. Because people ask for something, and then they say, let me just check, sorry. Then they'll say why it's not good for them. So for example, they'll say, I want something closer. Or, that's too expensive, I want something cheaper. And then Marsbot can come back with an alternate response that overrides their objection. And I thought about it, that's very similar to the way that we interact with our friends when we're deciding what to do. How many of you have been in a conversation where you ask someone, well, what do you want to do? And they say, I don't know what you want to do. And you throw out a suggestion, and they say, no, I can't do that. I don't like spicy food. So you throw out another suggestion. You're like, no, that's too far. I don't want to go over there. And then you throw out another suggestion. And then, well, with certain people, 2 hours later, you eventually find something that overcomes all of their objections, and then you find a place that works for everybody. And I feel like this conversational back and forth search is very interesting. It's a very interesting way to search and find things. It's a lot more personal. It's a lot more natural. And so, we started adding a few features where you can ask questions about places and ask for something closer or cheaper. It's not developed yet. It's, we don't quite have the NLP set up, but there's little inklings of it there. So I encourage you to give it a try and let me know how it goes, because it's really fascinating to watch. And then another thing we learned while making bots is, well, particularly if you don't have buttons, we just kind of help people in our messages, tell them, what they can type. And, when people start getting off subject, like, hey, Marsbot, what's the weather? It's like, what do I look like, a weather app? No, but we kind of try to help them figure out what they can type to Marsbot, so that way they know what they're doing. It seems to work pretty well. So that's where we're at with Marsbot right now. The future of this story is yet unwritten. It's a very exciting time. We don't know what this bot is going to look like, in a few months or next year, and how search and push recommendations is going to look like in this local space. So it's available on iOS now, and Android is coming soon. And I'd love some feedback, and I'd love questions. So there you go. Thanks.
Does anyone? Yep.
So you guys aren't using any buttons in Marsbot, correct? That's not the actual question. You guys aren't using buttons. It's all user text input?
Yeah, it has to be, because we're using SMS,
okay.
It has to be user text input.
Can you speak to how you guys are parsing user input? Are you doing regex or using any, can you speak to that at all?
We're just doing, so because we're focusing so much on the push side, on Marsbot talking to you versus you talking to it, we just have some very basic heuristics that we use to analyze the text. And if you go outside the parameters of the heuristics, it'll kind of the error message will kind of draw you back in on what you could type. But I think once we have a lot of practice here, there are a lot of tools coming up, and a lot of people here are talking about tools that can be used to improve our natural language understanding. So it's just going to get better and better. Oh, yeah.
I noticed in your screenshots that the messages that you give to the customer are pretty long. I was wondering if you could comment on, are people reading those long messages, and have you thought about breaking them out into...
I'm having trouble hearing.
Sorry. I noticed in the screenshots that the messages that you send to customers are pretty long.
The messages are long.
Yeah, and have you thought about threading them? So instead of having one long message, maybe like 2 or 3 short messages, or are people reading your long messages?
Yeah, we have an interesting system where we can send multiple messages. So, just like you're typing to someone, I can type a message, and I can type a message to someone through Marsbot, and then I can say, send this other message 3 seconds later, and then send this other message 4 seconds later, so that people will read it more. And maybe we could do more of that, but we've done some of that, and it's helped.
Any other questions? Give it up from, oh, nope, one more.
So question for you based off of your, how you're tracking your analytics and your metrics. So text message doesn't give you any kind of read state. So how are you tracking your engagement with your users? And so how do you do that? Through text?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
How do you track engagement through text?
How do you track engagement from text? I think, so we work with Twilio, and I believe Twilio gets us that information, their dashboard.
Any others? Right behind me. There we go.
This isn't meant to be cynical, but your conversational example of why this is interesting, wasn't that the problem that Foursquare was trying to solve to begin with? Like that 2-hour back and forth with your friends? It was supposed to be like, hey, why don't you just use this app and solve that quickly?
Exactly. Well, so what's the, and that you don't want a 2-hour conversation with a bot. Yeah, no, I don't actually picture the conversation with the bot being 2 hours, but I do picture it being, I picture you being able to, rather than searching through a list of results that you have, everyone has a list of results. Foursquare has a list of results, but you can think of any number of local search applications, or Google Maps, whatever. They all have lists of results. The interesting part is to get one result, ask questions about it, think about it, and then if you have a problem with it, it can get you the second result while taking your objection into account. So rather than scrolling through a list of 20 things and then maybe being like, nah, this doesn't have what I want, maybe I need a filter, I think there's a good chance we can get to what you want in those complicated situations a lot faster.
One more question. Do you guys have, can you add Marsbot to a group? Like, can you have group messages about where to have lunch?
I wouldn't try it. That'd be pretty cool, though, if you can actually text Marsbot with a group of people, so you can kind of discuss the results, but certainly not in V1.
Any more questions? Give Max a hand. This is a big deal.
Thank you.